and money. Okay, and includes, now he is talking whatever is included. Excluded, actionable claims and money are excluded. Now he is talking about the items which are included in Sale of Goods Act. First one is, it includes stock and shares, growing crops, grass. Okay, these 4 items are included in our Sale of Goods Act. One by one we will see. What do you mean by stock? Okay, collective shares are known as stock. Shares which is collectively are known as stock. And shares, you know, shares are covered by our Sale of Goods Act. Growing crops, you know, like we grow wheat and all those are crops. And grass also, it is included in our Sale of Goods Act. Okay, and also, now it is clear. Next we will move on to, and the things attached to or forming part of the land. Okay, things attached to or forming part of the land which are agreed to be severed before the sale. This is very important concept and a lengthy concept. Here only you need to clarify the concept. Again, when you go for TP Act, you will get confusion. It should be differentiated, it should be understood in its proper sense. Otherwise, this ambiguity or confusion will prolong when you go to TP Act also. Most of them feel difficult in understanding the basic concept, the difference between sale of goods, what he is talking in Sale of Goods and what he is keeping for Transfer of Property Act. This light difference is there, I'll tell you. Growing crops. Okay, next, the things attached to or forming part. Generally, the things which are attached to the earth, he is talking about the things attached to the earth, and specifically he is talking about trees. Okay, trees, he is talking about trees. Okay, trees which is forming the part of the earth or permanently attached to the earth, those are covered by Transfer of Property Act. Those are those trees, those are called as immovable property and it is covered under TP Act, Transfer of Property Act. But there is an exception, a small exception which is pulled by our Sale of Goods Act, that you need to understand. Okay, there are 3 terms I will tell you. First one is standing timber, trees and timber trees. Okay, I'll tell you in due course, but you remember that there is a little bit clarification you need to, and you should keep these 3 terms in your mind so that you understand the concept in a better way. Okay, standing timber. Okay, he said in the definition that standing timber is included in Sale of Goods Act. Why? Because in TP Act under section 3 he has given a definition by telling that standing timber, growing crops and grass are excluded from the definition of immovable property, where in TP Act under the definition of immovable property he is excluding growing crops, grass and also standing timber. That means when he is excluding from the definition of immovable, that which are excluded fall into the category of movable and it is covered by Sale of Goods Act. Specifically, you need to understand that standing timbers are excluded. Even though they are attached to the earth, those are excluded from TP Act in the definition of immovable, and they are pushing it into our movable and also under Sale of Goods Act. Why he is doing such things? We need to understand that. Okay. First we will see what do you mean by standing timber. Is it a tree? Okay. Uh, Standing timber and all we'll see later on. There this distinction is, and this meaning, distinctions, principles, and this differences between those terms, those all are explained in a famous case of Shantabai versus State of Bombay in 1958. Okay, this is the famous case where we get the why they have excluded the standing timbers from the definition of immovable. Okay, what is the difference between why standing timbers, even though they are trees and attached to earth, why they have excluded from the definition of immovable and they are pushing it to movable, and what are the principles laid down when you have to say a tree becomes standing timber and when a tree becomes a timber tree, and all will one by one I'll clear your I'll give you some clarity. Okay. Case law Shantabai versus State of Bombay 1958. Okay, I'm not going into detailed facts of the case because this is more relevant to TP Act. Therefore, here you need to understand the basic difference. Okay, what was need arise to make distinction between standing timber and tree, why it is excluded from the definition of tree, and why they made a distinction between tree and a standing timber. Is there any conflict for such is there any conflict in this case which they need to make such difference or distinction between tree and a standing timber? We need to see that part. Okay, and facts you can Google it, or when it comes to TP Act you can read over there. Okay. We need here specifically you need to understand the definition of standing timber. What are the features which is distinguishing it from trees and also timber trees? Okay. First, when you see General Clauses Act section 3 clause 26, okay, when you see General Clauses Act means a definition which is not given anywhere is being defined under such. Some definitions are given under, we can refer when a definition is not given under any particular act, generally we refer such definition to General Clauses Act. Okay, there they have defined immovable property. Okay, in TP Act they have not defined the definition of immovable. Okay, for definition of immovable property everyone should refer General Clauses Act 3 clause 26. Okay, which gives us the definition of immovable property. Okay, which according to that it was said that anything which is attached to earth or permanently fastened to the earth, same anything which is attached or forming part of the land is immovable property. So that was the definition for immovable property according to General Clauses Act. Okay, when you see Transfer of Property Act section 3, it specifically excludes standing timber. According to section 3 of Transfer of Property Act, it says that standing timber is not immovable property, but trees are regarded as immovable since they are attached to or rooted in the earth. That means standing timbers are not rooted in the earth or they are not attached to earth. Why they have excluded from immovable property definition and they are considering it as movable, we need to see. And the same is said by 2 clause 6 of Registration Act. Registration Act also says the same thing. Okay. The question here arises is standing timber when still rooted in the earth why it is not being treated as immovable but as movable? Why it is being treated as movable? Okay, for this question you need to see first you need to understand what do you mean by timber. I'll tell. Timber means wood suitable for building houses, bridges, ships, furniture, etc. All these are comes under the definition of timber. Okay. Next, standing timber. What do you mean by standing timber? Okay, I'll read the meaning of standing timber, then I'll explain you. Standing timber is a tree that is in the state fit for the above said purposes. Standing timber is also a tree which is in a state fit for the above said purpose. Above said purpose I have said for it is used for houses, building houses, bridges, ships, furniture, etc. It is in a state fit for the above said purposes. And further, it is a tree that is meant to be converted into timber so shortly that it can already be looked upon as timber for all practical purposes, even though it is still standing. Even though it is rooted in the earth and even though it is standing, still treated as timber. Okay, why? Because it is shortly that it can be ready, shortly it is ready for the purpose of timber. Okay, this definition you need to know. Standing timber is a tree that is in the state fit for the above said purposes, and further it is a tree that is meant to be converted into timber so shortly that it can already be looked upon as timber for all practical purposes, even though it is still standing. Now, if it is not so, it is still a tree. Okay, unlike timber, it will continue to draw substances from the soil. See, if it is not a timber, timber means which is ready for the severing, Standing timber, it is ready for the severing, which is being used for set purposes. Okay, if it is not so, if the tree is not in a standing position, it would draw the nutrients from the soil. He means to say that unless and until a tree draws the nutrients from the soil, it is not standing. When it becomes standing, when it is ready to be severed. When a tree or a standing timber, when it is ready for the purpose of severing, it stops drawing nutrients from the soil and it becomes movable. Okay, when it stops drawing the nutrients from the soil, we call it as standing timber. Means it is ready to be severed and moved from the forests or set places for the purpose of making furniture and everything. That becomes movable even though it is rooted in the earth. So when such position we call it as standing timber, and when a timber is rooted in the soil and still it is drawing nutrients from the soil, we call them as timber trees. That means the tree which is not ready to be severed. Then how can you say a tree when it becomes a standing timber and when it is in the position of timber tree? That is very well given in this case law. That difference is given by this very well laid down in this case law. Okay, I'll tell you when you should. Okay. While giving the judgment, the following principles were laid down as whether it is a standing timber or timber tree, we can draw conclusion by seeing their size and girth and also the intention of the parties to fell at an early date. By seeing the size of the tree and girth means when you see the trunk of the tree, size, trunk, diameter or what you call, I don't know, the girth means when you see the age of that trunk, and also intention of the parties. Intention of the parties is what they have agreed. Yes, in the early date we are going to, it is ready for severe and it is to be transferred in the early dates. It can be very well inferred from the intention of the parties. By seeing these elements, you can say that a tree is a standing timber or a timber tree. If it is a timber tree, it becomes immovable, and if it is a standing timber, it becomes movable, which is covered by our Sale of Goods Act. Okay. So you should make note that things attached or forming part of the land, though immovable, if they are agreed to be severed and removed means or cutted before sale or under the contract of sale, falls under the definition of goods. Okay, therefore trees means, see, we'll take one good example. In the same way, we have one house. Okay, when it is a house, it is attached to the earth. Okay, and to such house there are doors and windows attached to that house. When they are attached to the house or building, those doors and windows become immovable property. But when the house is being like dismantled or demolished, now that house has been given for dismantling, so now they have dismantled that house. The doors and windows which were previously attached to that building were removed, and now those are being moved for selling. Now the doors and windows which are removed and moved for contract of sale becomes movable property and need to be imposed a sale tax on such goods. When those are attached to the building, now stamp duty and registration come into place, that will be dealt by Transfer of Property Act. Okay, means a basic need for differentiating the movable and immovable is to levy sale tax, or when it comes to contract of sale of goods, sale tax comes into picture. And if you talk about immovable property, registration and stamp duty comes into picture. That's all. Where to levy that, you need to, for levying tax only, we need to difference this properties. Okay, this was the definition, a long explanation, but hope you people understood that. Okay, still if you have any doubts, you can ask me. Okay, next come after this, there are some few elements which are also included in the definition of goods. Okay, water, electricity and gas. Okay, when in a case, in one particular case, while delivering the judgment in Supreme Court, they have the question arised was whether the electric energy could be considered as a goods or not. Okay, for the purpose of levying sale tax. Okay, this was the case of Commissioner of Sale Tax Madhya Pradesh versus Madhya Pradesh Electricity Board. Okay, Commissioner of Sale Tax Madhya Pradesh versus Madhya Pradesh Electricity Board, whether the electric energy there should be a levy of sale tax or not. Here, while giving the judgment, it was held that electric energy cannot be taken in a narrow sense, means they have implied a wider meaning to the concept of electric energy. Okay. They said that since it is a tangible, cannot be moved or touched, means a tangible things which cannot be moved or touched, like movable goods. Movable goods very well we can be touched and moved. Like electric energy is still it comes under the movable property because it has other elements. Even though it is tangible, it has all such properties, like it can be transmitted, transferred, delivered, stored and possessed like any other movable goods. Even though it doesn't have some property or some elements of movable goods, but it is also having other properties of movable goods. So they have included electric energy into the concept of movable property, and you can levy sale tax. Okay. In the same way, some other goods like electronic TV signals, railway receipts, lottery tickets are also covered by the definition of goods. Okay. Why we are talking lottery tickets? Because they are levying sale tax on such goods, and levy of sale tax on lottery tickets is valid. Okay. When you see certain case laws, it was held like that. Now the important thing is, we'll talk about FDR. FDR means fixed deposit receipts. Most of the people get confused here only, and when you Google also, there are many different types of opinions regarding fixed deposit receipts, whether FDRs comes under movable, or it is an actionable claim, or it is a kind of money. They get confused. But to make it clear for you, fixed deposit receipt is a goods. Which was held in the case of State Bank of India versus Srimati Neela Ashok Nayak. Okay. Here FDR, fixed deposit receipt, is considered as goods and hence can be pledged as collateral security. When you want to pledge, you will pledge movable goods. So in the same way, when you want to take loan as a collateral security, you can pledge fixed deposit receipt, which becomes a movable good. Okay. This you need to understand. When you Google, you will get wrong answers over there. Make clear. It is not an actionable claim, it is not a money, it is a goods. Okay. When you want to pledge as collateral security, the same way how we pledge goods, in the same way that receipt you can pledge. Because why you are pledging? Because it is a good. Okay. Till now we tried to understand briefly what are covered by the definition of goods and what are specifically excluded from the definition of goods. Okay. I hope you understand. The second element